Have you ever wondered what's missing or keeping you from greatness? Have you ever asked yourself or stopped and wondered what's the next book that I have to read in order to be great or become great? What diet should I start following? What gym should I start going to in order to be greater or achieve greatness? What investments should I make in this world in order to be great, to become great, and stay great? Walk in greatness. I think that all of us at one point or another in our lives have asked all of these surrounding questions, and they surround the main question that I think is what truth is out there that I can find, that I can follow and fulfill so that I can walk in the greatness that I so dream of and that you and I were actually created to walk in. Well, trust me when I say that I've definitely been there too, asking those surrounding questions and then honing down into that main question. And it should be comforting to us to know that Jesus, the 12 disciples that followed Jesus when he was on this earth, they themselves battled with this question amongst themselves, asking, who is the greatest? And so before you click away or keep scrolling, if Jesus and the whole Bible or Christianity, if all of the things that I've mentioned thus far are just not your thing, stay around, and I bet that you can and that you will learn something, because my heart in making these videos is always that somebody somewhere will get something out of it. And so I found it very comforting to know that even the closest 12 that were following Jesus battled with this idea and this question of wanting to know who would be the greatest. And so in this video, I like to propose that the answer is not really in what or where, when or why, but the answer is actually in who. And you might be thinking, well, this is going to be a preachy video. This guy's got a Jesus hoodie on. I know who he's going to tell me about. But really, what about the who that we see when we look in the mirror? That person has also a lot to do with how we achieve, how we become, and how we walk in the greatness that we were all created to walk in. How we deal with that person in the mirror actually has to do more with greatness sometimes than anything else. And so the disciples following Jesus argued over this question, and it's actually mentioned in 3 of the 4 Gospels where the disciples are arguing over who is the greatest. But it's interesting to find the details of the conversations that lead us into that. And so I want to cover the 3, and Matthew's account of it kind of beforehand is just mentioning or talking about money. Jesus knows what Peter's going to ask him about taxes, and pretty much that account is Jesus telling Peter, yeah, we got to pay taxes, bro. In Mark, when that argument comes up, it actually takes place after Jesus has predicted his death, but he also predicts his resurrection. And then lastly, in Luke's account, he predicts his death, and there's no mention of his resurrection. Now, I think that there's 3 things that we can learn or pull from, one from each of those things. And I hope that you can identify with at least one of these 3 things that I believe God has helped me identify. One, from Matthew's account, you can be and you were created to be great, whether you are rich or you are poor or wherever you land in between those 2. Second, out of Mark's account, Jesus talked about his death and resurrection in Mark, but in Luke, just about his death. So 2 and 3 kind of go together, but someone's got to die. And it might just be that person who's in the mirror. Now, not literally, but there might be some ways of thinking, there might be some attitudes, there might be some habits, some things in us that need to die so that somebody can come alive. Somebody new can come alive. And so the disciples are arguing, and we're going to look at the different perspectives that they all share. And so Matthew, when he's writing about this and sharing about this, he says that he and the disciples came and asked Jesus, who is the greatest. Mark, in his account, it says that Jesus asked them. And then in Luke, it says that Jesus knew what they were thinking, so he just answered their question. And I think that this is awesome because it highlights some of the stuff that is required in order for us to be great. In order for us to walk in the greatness that we were created to walk in, we can learn something from each of their different perspectives. And from Matthew, we learn that sometimes we're going to have to be the initiators. We're going to have to go and ask some questions. From Mark, we can learn that it's going to oftentimes be required for us to answer other people's questions. And what's unfortunate is that in today's world, we oftentimes label that as an attack. It's not an attack. We're required, and there's growth opportunities for when we answer the questions of other people. And last, from Luke's perspective, when Jesus just knew and he answered them without them having to ask it, from Luke's perspective, we can rest assured that even if you don't believe that there is a God out there, I do, and I want to share with you that God knows. God knows exactly where you are. He knows exactly what you've been through. And because God knows, the awesome news is that God shows. And so that's exactly what Jesus does in all of the accounts. Jesus brings over a little child. He shows them what it's going to take to be great. And he says this. I'll share from Matthew's perspective. It says, "Truly I say to you, unless you change and become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. So whoever will humble himself like this child, he is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever receives one such child in my name receives me." Now I want to just highlight two words from here because you might answer this question in the affirmative. Has life been stressful for you lately? Stressful. The Greek word for change in Matthew's account is this word strepho, which literally just means to change one's mind. And so part of the answer to us achieving the greatness, part of us having less stressful lives, is just literally changing our minds, changing our perspective on things. And the good news is that we can decide to do that today. Another thing that might need to happen in order for life to be less stressful is that there might need to be a dechomai, a death of my old self, and the resurrection of a new self or new way of thinking. And so I just want to end with James 1:21 and challenge you to not reject this idea, not reject any of the things that I've shared in the last couple minutes, and just take it and run with it, whatever lands on your heart. James 1:21 says, "Therefore, ridding yourselves of all filthiness and all that remains of wickedness, in humility receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls." And I think that we all need some saving from those things that are keeping us from walking in greatness. God bless you.